Have you ever had that feeling, waking up in the middle of the night, your eyes are open, you know exactly where you are, but you can't move a muscle? It's like you're completely trapped inside your own body. Well, that terrifying experience has a name: sleep paralysis. And yeah, it's fueled ghost stories for centuries, but the real science behind it is honestly way more fascinating.
So imagine it. You feel a presence in the room, maybe a weight on your chest, and this primal fear just washes over you. But you can't scream, you can't fight, you can't even twitch your little finger. So what in the world is going on in your brain and your body at that moment? Well, let's break it down. For centuries, this was the stuff of folklore. People blamed it on demons, ghosts, you name it. But today, science gives us a much clearer picture. We're going to peel back that mystery and see what's really happening when that line between being asleep and being awake gets totally blurred.
At its core, sleep paralysis is basically a glitch in your sleep cycle. See, normally when you're in REM sleep, that's your main dream state, your brain paralyzes your body. It's a safety feature, right? It stops you from, say, literally running from the monster in your dream. It's called muscle attonia. Well, sleep paralysis happens when your brain wakes up, but that off switch for your muscles hasn't been flipped yet. So you become conscious before your body does.
But the paralysis is often just the beginning. Your mind, which is still kind of half dreaming, tries to make sense of this bizarre situation, and that can lead to some seriously powerful hallucinations. Researchers have kind of boiled them down to three main types. There's the intruder, where you just feel a threatening presence in the room. Then there's the incubus, that classic feeling of being crushed or suffocated. And finally, you've got vestibular motor hallucinations, which feel like you're floating, flying, or even having an out-of-body experience. Wild, right?
Okay, so we know what it is. But the next big question is, who gets it the most and why? Well, a study from the National Institutes of Health decided to investigate this by looking at jobs known for intense chronic stress. The theory was pretty simple. If stress is a trigger, then these groups should have way higher rates of sleep paralysis.
And the researchers, they didn't just pick these jobs out of a hat. I mean, think about it. Nurses, midwives, police officers, they often deal with trauma, high-stakes situations, and totally unpredictable shift work. Teachers face this immense, constant pressure. These are basically perfect environments to study the link between a high-stress life and this particular sleep disorder. Before we get to the results, let's just set a baseline. In the general population, it's estimated that about 8% of people experience sleep paralysis at least once in their lives, so roughly 1 in 12 people. Just keep that number in your head.
So, did the big hypothesis hold up? Was the daily grind of these incredibly demanding jobs actually triggering this waking nightmare? The answer was a definite yes, but it came with a really interesting twist. And this is where the story gets really compelling, because the numbers, they don't just confirm a link to stress, they actually reveal a much, much more complex picture. Okay, here's the first huge finding. Both groups were way higher than the general population. Police officers were at over 15%, almost double the average. But just look at the nurses and midwives. A staggering 27.9%. We're talking almost 1 in 3 reported experiencing it. That's a massive difference, which just begs the question, why? And the study went even deeper than just counting how often it happened. The researchers started asking what the episodes actually felt like. And what they found was that the intensity of the physical symptoms was dramatically different between the groups. So it wasn't just about how often it happened, but how visceral and terrifying the experience really was. So check this out. For the nurses and midwives who had sleep paralysis, almost 65% of them felt that crushing pressure on their chest. For police officers, only 37%. And look at the difference in heart palpitations, over 83% for nurses versus about 56% for police. It really seems like the physical experience itself is just more intense for the healthcare professionals. So we've got different rates and different experiences. To figure out why, the researchers started looking for connections. What other factors in their lives, from anxiety levels to daily habits, were linked to these episodes? Well, the answers were completely different for each group. And here's the first big surprise. I mean, everyone kind of expected to see a straight line from anxiety and perceived stress right to sleep paralysis in police officers. But the data didn't show that at all. The real connections were found somewhere else entirely. This is fascinating. For the police officers, there was no statistical link between their sleep paralysis symptoms and how they scored on psychological tests for anxiety, worry, or even perceived stress. Instead, the connections were physical. Things like smoking and alcohol consumption were directly correlated with having more intense symptoms.
Now, for the nurses and midwives, the data told the exact opposite story. For them, lifestyle habits like smoking and drinking, they showed no significant correlation. Instead, all the clues pointed directly to their mental and emotional state. The contrast here is just so stark. For this group, higher levels of perceived stress and more severe PTSD symptoms were directly linked to having more frequent and more intense sleep paralysis episodes. It's a completely different profile. For the police, the link was lifestyle. For the nurses, it was all psychology. So, what do we make of all this? Well, it's pretty clear that stress plays a role, but it's not some simple one-to-one thing. The way stress actually manifests and connects to sleep paralysis seems to be filtered through the unique world of a person's job and their coping mechanisms, whether those are psychological or behavioral. The researchers themselves admit how complex this is. This quote really gets to the heart of the whole chicken or the egg problem, right? Do people who are already prone to these issues just happen to choose high-stress jobs? Or do the jobs themselves create the conditions that lead to sleep paralysis? The answer is probably a little bit of both. So when you boil it all down, what this shows us is that sleep paralysis isn't some single, uniform experience. Even though the basic mechanism is the same, the triggers and the risk factors are incredibly personal. For some people, it might be a sign to look at their lifestyle habits. For others, it could be a major signal of underlying psychological stress. It really is a deeply individual thing. Ultimately, this kind of research transforms sleep paralysis from just a random, terrifying fluke into a meaningful signal. It's this profound reminder of how our work, our stress, and our habits are all woven into the fabric of our subconscious. And it leaves us with a really powerful question. Our sleep is always trying to tell us something. The real question is, are we listening?